Right, let's go back now to my colleague Chriselda Lewis, who is standing by to wrap the day's proceedings for us. Chriselda, it was a very difficult day. I mean, as we were talking about the president even saying that the nation's hearts are broken.
Well, that's right, Bongi. As expected, it was bound to be a very difficult day for the families, in particular because this would be that day of remembrance. While it had not been funeral proceedings per se, you would recall we had indicated that there'd been 19 empty coffins that had been taken from the mortuary in Mdantsane to the sports ground where that remembrance was being held. And despite the fact that the funerals of most of them are still yet to get underway, their final burials are expected to take place between Friday, Saturday and Sunday, and only 2 were buried this afternoon after the proceedings, one in Mount Coke and another not too far from where we are. These families still grappling, trying to find answers of exactly what happened at the Enyobeni tavern. Some of those that we spoke to today during the live proceedings at this remembrance, they were telling us that they were hoping that by the time they got to this particular venue, where this memorial or remembrance was being held, they basically said they were hoping that they would have some answers. But of course, we heard from the police minister, Bheki Cele, when he addressed mourners today, that those investigations in terms of the tests are still underway. They were taken to Cape Town, and the majority of them have not returned at this stage. However, hearing from the Eastern Cape Health Department, them indicating that they have now ruled out the possibility that the cause of death of these 21 youngsters was a stampede. So that has been ruled out at this particular stage. So it was a very emotional day since the start of this morning. Many of the parents of these young children, unable to hold back their emotions. These were young people with promising lives. This is what we heard from most of the community members throughout the time that we had been here with our colleagues in the East London and Port Elizabeth branches that had been here for the past week, indicating that these families are saying that this is a tragedy of such proportions they didn't think that they as parents would be, bearing their children. And of course, that remembrance today, the president, as you indicated in some of those clips, the president saying that on the 26th of June, which was the occurrence when this tragedy had occurred, a crime was committed then. He is also called for justice in this matter and basically says that, the results shouldn't take too long because the parents of these young children would want closure and to know exactly what happened or what led to the deaths of these young children. But the issues of societal ills and what needs to be addressed, not just in the community of Scenery Park where this took place, but you would see something like this resonate where you see young people entertain themselves with alcohol in various parts of the country. Some would argue that there simply isn't enough for young people to entertain themselves with, and this is about the only way that they go about occupying their free time. So a lot of conversations need to be held regarding that. The president said he was happy that the Minister of Police will be engaging with the Liquor Board and a number of other stakeholders to try and find some solutions to the crises that we are facing. Because the question has been asked about why. Why did this happen? Why were the children out at that time of the morning? They were not supposed to be of age that are out at taverns. Those children should have never been in those taverns to begin with. Investigations are still underway from what we heard the president indicate. The municipality here is looking at the paperwork of this tavern to find out if all their paperwork had been in order. But quite shocking, Bongiwe, what we also got to see during the course of this past week, going inside that tavern, which painted a picture for us of a situation that was extremely dire. We still found some shoes lying on the floor while the scene itself was not active at this this point, it has been handed over to the owners of that tavern, but you could still see the remnants of the destruction inside it, and would paint a very grim picture of possibly what happened on that early hours of the morning when so many of those youngsters had died. But I think now we know that 10 of the victims will be buried on Saturday. Tomorrow there'll be others that will be laid to rest, but the final batch of victims will be laid to rest on Sunday. But for these families, I think the ultimate closure that will be for them is to know what the cause of death is of their children, so that they're able to mourn and understand exactly what could have happened. Also, a bit earlier on this week, I also spoke to one of the relatives of the tavern owners, and I asked him whether they take responsibility for what has happened. They're saying they're also struggling with it at this particular time. They fear for their lives, and understandably so, because the community itself wants answers. They want to know what is happening. They are all grieving. The numbers that came out to the sports ground, certainly overwhelming, while there had been calls by the Buffalo City municipality for a majority of people to stay at home and watch it on television. There were quite a large number of people, I would say over 1,000, who had come to the stadium to come and pay their last respects, both young and old. And to see those young people lining up the streets as we moved from the mortuary in Mdantsane to the sports ground was truly heartbreaking.
All right, Chriselda, certainly. And when one watched you inside that tavern, you could only see just what may have happened, the devastation, and that very small space that, you know, really appeared to have been crammed with a lot of young people. So certainly lots of questions, and hopefully the parents will be able to get some answers. That's Chriselda Lewis there, who has been watching developments very closely throughout the day.